Hello, welcome back to the DLC. And today we're going to be talking about this week's major expansion, Civilization 6 Gathering Storm. Now, we've been really looking forward to this one, and we recognise it as our most anticipated DLC this month, and for good reason. Now, first of all, I want to say thank you for 2K for providing some early access to this DLC so that we can actually take a look ahead of release. You basically create an empire to be rivaled by the rest of the world. And the good thing about it is there's multiple ways to victory. And what Gathering Storm does is add a little bit to that, with adding a new diplomatic victory, as well as adding environmental effects, engineering projects, power and consumable resources, and even a world congress system. You also get some new technology and civics trees with a future era, and 8 new civilizations have also been added into the game with 9 new leaders. And that obviously comes, of course, with new units and districts, wonders and buildings, and much, much more. But of course, the big one is the environmental effects. And what happens now in Civilization 6 Gathering Storm is that you actually have natural disasters. If your civilization is based near a volcano, that volcano could eventually erupt and cause massive damage to your civilization. But the plus side of that is, once the damage has been done, that area around it can actually be filled with natural, really usable resources. But if you're not near a volcano, you probably think, I'm completely and utterly safe. You'll be completely and utterly wrong, because you can also be flooded, and the banks can actually break and burst, and water can just flood and drown your entire city around you. It's quite traumatic. Others include an actual drought, you can have hurricanes, geometric fissures, and other several types of storm as well. And you can even have man-made disasters based on the ecological impact that you have in the game. And that can also include rising sea levels, melting ice caps, and of course resource consumption. Now, this power system is quite an interesting addition to Civilization 6 because it actually affects the effectiveness of your buildings late on in the game. So depending on what sort of corners you've cut, it can impact things like the CO2 level, and also you can have the effect of coal and uranium and oil on the environment. And as mentioned, this obviously affects the sea levels and the ice caps. It's a really fascinating idea, and it kind of gives you some perspective, because Civilization 6 is actually entering uncharted territory. Scientists have predicted what the future could be based on the way that we have treated the world over the years. Of course, you do have the engineering projects as well, where you can actually generate effective ways for your units and trade across empires, and this also includes new districts and route types and wonders as well, like the Panama Canal and the Golden Gate Bridge. And of course, there's the World Congress system, and favor has become a new form of currency. So it's not just gold that's useful to you in Civilization. You actually performing favors for other civilizations, and the way that you treat the world and the things that you do in your playthrough can contribute to your favor. And this is used as a currency, and it can affect your overall standing and impact on the World Congress. So if you've actually got some diplomatic goodwill, this can also impact your voting power when you're actually coming to make the big decisions. And of course, there's 21st century technologies and civics, and you have things like CSEDs and advanced AI, cybernetics, distributed sovereignty, and even off-world missions. The new civilizations include Canada, Hungary, Inca, Sweden, and the Ottomans. And there's new natural wonders like the Chocolate Hills and the Vesuvius. On top of that, there's new units like the Skirmisher and the Corsair. You've got robotic type engineering, like giant death robots. And there's also a new introduction of something called the Rock Band, which is kind of a special atomic era unit that's got huge amounts of tourism potential. Firaxis, of course, have added new scenarios into the game as well. There's one for the Gathering Storm expansion, but there's also a Black Death scenario. And this really challenges your civ to go through the Great Plague that affected Europe and Western Asia in the mid-14th century. There's also a War Machine scenario which looks at the outset of World War I. Gathering Storm is just a massive expansion. I've only sort of scratched the surface here, but there are things like production queues that have been added, Empire Lens, all sorts of fantastic things have happened. And what I think is the most amazing thing about Gathering Storm is that it's all procedurally generated, meaning events can happen when you least expect them to. You will guarantee to see something different from one playthrough to the next. They're never going to be completely the same, because natural disasters alone will massively impact the way that you approach different things, and obviously the ecological impact that you have on your civilization and the rest of the world around you. That also influences your relationships with other civilizations. That can also massively influence your road to victory. It's incredibly elaborate. It completely changes the civilization experience for the better, I feel, because it gives you even more choice, even more options, and even more to think about when you're playing. I absolutely have been adoring playing Gathering Storm. I've really enjoyed my time with it. We're going to have a full review and video review for you very soon. I still want to spend a bit more time exploring the content and really getting a feel for different playthroughs and seeing how that impacts me and how that impacts the way I play. But yeah, we'll absolutely have much more Gathering Storm content for you. I just wanted to create a little video to sort of talk a bit about the game as it's coming out this week, give you an idea of what it actually adds to Civilization 6, and basically tell you that it's well worth the money and that you really need to get it, even if you've played Civilization 6 before and you've left it for a long time, if you're a massive fan, or you've never even played the games before. And this is a fantastic jumping on point for you because there is just so much more to think about. It's such a unique, fresh experience, and it just all plays very well. It's very enjoyable. But thanks very much for joining us today on the DLC. Be sure to stick with us as we review more and more DLC news as it comes in, the big stories of the day. As I mentioned, this is the big DLC story of this week, so we had to do something on Civilization 6 Gathering Storm, and there is a full review coming on the channel very soon, so keep an eye out for that. But until then, see you next time.